In today's episode of Leading Strong, Brandon and I revisit what it means to be an authoritative manager that's strengths focused. And we dive into the three manager intelligence skills: investment, innovative, and intentional, as part of our season 1 recap. Let's dive right in.
Congratulations! You are tuned into Leading Strong, the place to be to level up your leadership effectiveness on one of your most important roles, engaging your employees. Managers are responsible for at least 70% of their employees' engagement. The best managers, like you, lead strong by constantly honing and developing the skills needed to keep their teams engaged. Your hosts, Darren Veresamy and Brandon Miller, are the co-founders of 34 Strong, a company that creates great places to work. Their team has worked in Fortune 500 companies, government agencies, and small businesses to lead strong. Now over to Darren.
Welcome to season 1 of Leading Strong, where we will dive deep to grow your manager intelligence. I'm your host, Darren Veresamy, here to serve you in your continued discovery and growth to lead strong. This episode of Leading Strong is brought to you by 34 Strong, where organizations just like yours become great places to work. To find out more, check out 34strong.com. All right, Brandon, good afternoon to you. We are going to get going today and jumping right in where we left off last time, picking up, and we're going to be recapping season 1, talking about the manager intelligence skills, this time of investment, innovation, and intentional. Last time we had the chance to talk about the 4 different styles of management. And one of the things that we came back to was this component of being an authoritative manager, not an authoritarian manager. And when we're an authoritative manager, we're actually in a space where we actually do a really good job of focusing on strengths. So that's really the epitome of where that is. And a manager that is authoritative, they're assertive and invested, right? So that's a perfect segue into our skill that we're going to get into unpacking today, the first of the 3 that we will touch on. But investment, as we mentioned in our initial episode on this, we are not becoming investment advisors to you on your finances and different things like that. But how about investing in our people? Can you tell us, Brandon, take us back to the manager intelligence skill of investment, what that is, what it's all about, and why it matters, and before we give some nuggets and takeaways that people can use for that to grow it?
Absolutely. I can't talk about this without jumping into the growth mindset. Carol Dweck's excellent way of helping to break out this concept of a mind that is open, that wants to learn from feedback, inspired by success. They want to try new things. So investment is the idea that we are facilitating and capturing and encouraging this mindset from us as the manager, those whom we lead, and hopefully by that, the routine and the regular intervals of our patterns, our norms within our team culture.
That's an important piece here, and that growth mindset is so critical. And when we're talking about investing in our employees, it's making the time to spend that time. We host one of the big programs that we have trained managers over the years internally within 34 Strong is our Best Manager Academy. Brandon, we always ask the question, a simple question that you can reflect on as a manager is, think of the best manager that you've ever had in your life. And one quality that constantly comes up out of the thousands of managers that both of us have personally trained in our whole company has worked with, what's the one thing that always comes up? What do they always say, Brandon? My manager invested in me.
Yeah, absolutely. They took an interest and they spent the time to invest in my success, in my future.
And it's so easy when we're in just timeline-driven environment. It's so easy when we're in a remote work environment to fall off and say, I don't have the time to meet with my employees, to make those connections, to invest in them. What are some of the ways that managers can actually focus on making an investment a priority and grow this particular skill, even in the way that they're looking at their world, looking at challenges that they're facing?
Yeah, so I'm going to start with this perspective, and it's replacing the word failing with learning. If there is one common element that high investment skilled managers have, is that they believe that the first attempt in learning is what it means to fail. And they encourage it. They understand that failure is an excellent teacher in so much as the mark wasn't hit, the goal wasn't achieved. There was an actual issue that had to be dealt with or that occurred. And so when we think about the word failing and we replace it with learning, we're really building up this idea of what it means to invest, what it means to pull out of our people this mindset around learning and growth and development.
That's very important for us to be thinking about. Again, that notion of that people can constantly be growing, that we could be stepping into that space of continuing to move forward. It's easy for us to get stuck in that fixed mindset. I'll never forget, I was having this conversation with somebody when COVID first hit. There was all the challenges that were taking place with businesses. And this person, they told me, they said, hey, gosh, imagine when that hit, if your business would have failed, then what? What would you do? It would all be over. And I was thinking like, well, my heart's still beating. My brain still works, right? Like we're going to figure it out. If you fell down in the middle of a street when you're crossing the street, would you just stay down or would you figure out a way to get back up? That's part of what happens. So that investment that we put in can actually also help to condition that resiliency, which is such a huge part. And there's so much to be learned from fail. As Brandon iterated, I'll reiterate it here, is fail stands for first attempt in learning. That is such an important piece of the puzzle for us to be mindful of as we're going through there. And how does it communicate value?
Well, I think when we give people the understanding that we're going to pour into them, we're going to teach them, we're going to develop them, we're going to train them. And when they don't succeed, which we shouldn't expect them to, first time, second time, 10th time, even after multiple iterations, that we're learning, we're growing. I recently, Darren, understood this reality around goal setting. So for many of us, we like to set benchmarks, goals, things for the team that we lead to reach. And when the goal is set, we derive a strategy to reach the goal filled with tactics. What are we actually going to go do, right? Well, in most cases, when you set the goal, the first, second, third, fourth, fifth strategy may not work. And a highly skilled investment manager realizes it's an iteration. It's the next iteration. Let's move on to the next one. And they're comfortable with that reality for themselves, comfortable with that reality for team members, and therefore allow for that natural process to let's find the best strategy. Let's find the tactics that really work. Let's discover, keep an open mind that we can arrive there, we can do it together, and we can be very successful as we make our path and plans to get there.
And when we're looking at this, and we're thinking about it even for those of you that are involved in financial investing, right? Not every investment plays out perfectly. That's the piece. There is some elements that some things might fail, but you hope that you're growing well enough in other areas. We can see this in other uses of the word investment, which is a perfect segue to our next skill that we're going to talk about, which is in innovation, right? So it's innovation that we're going to take a look at here. And we want to be innovative when we're talking about this. So the manager intelligence skill of innovative is so important for being able to see where to invest not only in individuals, but within the team. Give us a quick overview of the skill of innovative.
When we are innovative as managers, we invite new ideas, we invite opinions, we invite contrarian viewpoints, because we know that in that space, in that open environment, we can arrive at brilliant, genius new pathways we hadn't even thought of before. And managers that are very secure in themselves, they know who they are, they know who they're not, they can look at themselves without judgment, embrace this skill and recognize that the collective power of a team will always far exceed the individual knowledge and hubris of the manager. And when this skill is acute, it's strong, you watch these teams adapt, shift, the creative capacity that comes out of them usually and almost always will lend toward a higher performance than teams sitting right next to them with lower innovation. And a big reason, Darren, as you and I both know, it simply comes down to how comfortable are you with some that you lead surpassing you in what they know, their genius, their ability, and your comfort with them receiving credit, them growing into who they are meant to be without that in any way threatening your position and your place within the organization.
And that brings us back to the point of what we were just talking about in the bridge between investment and innovative, which was this whole notion of fail, right? There's this great Brene Brown quote, which is there is no innovation and creativity without failure. And not only do we have to be willing to risk failure, we have to be willing to risk, yeah, I trained that person. They've surpassed me and they're better. And that's actually great for the organization. I'm okay with that. What are some of the outcomes that we see when there's a leader that has developed and honed this skill of innovative? And what are some ways that our listeners can focus on doing that?
Right. Well, when you spend the time to cultivate this skill, what you will notice is a bravery or a courage in your team. They'll forge new plans. They'll bring ideas. Hey, I spent the weekend. I got thinking about this thing and I spent this time and I want to share with you my idea. You will experience more of those occasions where you're blown away by what somebody brings you because in the middle of the night they had a brilliant idea or early that morning or whether they're out for a walk at lunch. And that is what this brings to you is this innovation. I want to think beyond where we've been. And I'll tell you what, Darren, as you and I have experienced in our own company, is the creative problem solving ability of different team members coming from different angles is just so wonderful because it facilitates collaboration, it facilitates cooperation. And now we are reaching outcomes. We are accomplishing goals, which what we love to do is celebrate those successes and enjoy that good progress that we can make as a team.
And it is. And when you start piecing so many of those parts together, you start finding that on a team that is really, really strong in this skill of innovative, it's not just something that you as a manager will have. You'll see it permeating throughout your team, your organization, actually. If it's strong within the organization, there's a willingness to fail because it's like, hey, at least you tried. You took a stab at that. What did we learn from that? And a lot of times it's the summary of the lessons from the failures that add up to the success, right? Les Brown said this quote, Brandon, it's people don't connect with your successes, they connect with your messes. And here's the thing, our messes are usually the birthplace of our successes on a personal level and within the teams that we lead. So that willingness to go there is really powerful. If you want a creative way to get into exploring this whole notion of innovative, I had the privilege in the summer of 2020 to actually work with a gentleman named Rod Taylor. He's a thought leader in the design thinking world. And we were co-facilitating this workshop together, Brandon, and he had us take a paperclip. So we were put into Zoom rooms because we were in from all around the world. And he said, okay, you have to come up with as many ideas of uses for paperclips as you possibly can. He gave us like 4 minutes. And then the group that came out with the most amount, they got to report all the different uses. And there was one rule. There's no wrong answers. So outside of holding paper clips, what could they be? It was just a fun way to get us outside of thinking and looking into what that could be. And sometimes maybe you're in an environment where trying to be innovative in the work that you're doing, that doesn't feel like a spark. Feel free to take an exercise like that and go outward to get creative, to spark that, to see what's there and set that ground rule. There's no wrong answers. Let's just get the mind kind of flowing from there. Now that takes us to our third skill, the final one that we'll be covering today, which is the skill of intentional, right? So as managers, we've got to be intentional. When we focus our intention on something and then we focus our attention on it, guess what we get? Results. But it starts with our intention and then we put our attention towards it and we get some results. Take us into the place of exploring what intentional is as a manager intelligence skill.
Absolutely. I think each of us in our management role, as we stated in past episodes, and certainly even we cover it at length, is we want to make a difference. We want to know that what we're doing matters. And when we think about managers who grow this skill, what they come to understand is that every word that I say, every meeting that I have, every conversation is an opportunity to make a positive impact, a difference in the lives of those who I lead. And so this skill actually builds within the manager the understanding of taking care with what we say, taking care of the actions that we portray, taking care in where I'm leading and where I say that we're going. And so this skill set is one that does require a bit of a quiet mind, a mind that pauses and learns to stay present so that when I'm in the midst of a conversation or a heated moment or an incident, I'm making sure to reflect on the power of my words, the power of my intentions, the power of my attitude, the power of my facial expressions, and how each of these impact those who I lead.
Right. And we have to think about how they impact those who we lead because it impacts in their work. And guess what? That then impacts them when they go home and how they show up at home. And they're all interconnected and correlated, right? And we see this connection between employee engagement and their overall well being. It's kind of a loop, they feed each other. So let's just talk for a moment. What are some of the steps that our listeners can take to be intentional about growing the intentional skill?
Sure. So when we evaluate this skill set, we're going to have to realize it's an interface with people that we lead or even people who lead us. And what we look for is, what is it that I say or do that leads to the best outcome? We use the reference to a book called The Art of Possibility, and it's the reference from Benjamin Zander with what causes our people's eyes to shine and what causes our people's eyes not to shine. And Zander, as we tell in the podcast with regard to intention, thought long and hard about the impact of what he said and did on those he led by looking in their eyes. And he could tell whether or not he was engaging them. Well, a manager who is very intentional about growing this allows themselves to establish a scoreboard, a way to evaluate, am I having the impact that I hope to have? Zander used shining eyes. What will be yours? And whatever you establish for that in this first workforce, it is possible we won't see as many eyeballs on a daily basis. But nevertheless, we can tell by tone of voice. We could tell by the emails that come through. We could tell by the phone conversations we have and what we're hearing and what we're experiencing, what we're seeing. Does that tell the story that my intention is having the outcome that I'm aiming it toward?
And if you do find yourself in the season of what 2020 has been, remote, distributed workforces, that you have gone down the path of communicating predominantly via email and just sending checklists and punch lists out to people, that might be missing the mark on the intentionality piece. So encourage you to go back and really dig in, because right now people are really needing that compassion more than ever. And with that, we'll leave it right there for today. Join us next time as we explore the final four of our manager intelligence skills in the season 1 recap. Brandon, thank you so much for your insights, and thank you all for joining us. If you want to continue your growth in Leading Strong by hanging out with others committed to Leading Strong, join one of our LinkedIn or Facebook groups by looking for The Leading Strong Show. The truth is, organizational results like productivity, profitability, and low employee turnover rise and fall based on employee engagement. The world is starving for strong leaders, as they not only impact an organization's performance, they create massive influence on an employee's overall health and well-being. If you want to learn more about becoming a great place to work or 34 Strong's signature Leading Strong programs, simply go to 34strong.com, where you will also be able to access resources you can start using immediately and stay connected with us. I want to thank you for sharing this episode with everyone you know who will benefit. Be sure to subscribe through your favorite podcasting channels, and please leave us a review. A big shout out to Wendell Fishman for writing and arranging the tune Aunt Lion for Leading Strong. Remember, everyone deserves a great place to work, and any workplace can be great. You can create culture by intention and design, and change happens with every life you touch. I am Darren Verasamy, here to help you lead strong. Until next time, my friends, I'm out.